never ever have enough time to play it all. You know everybody wants to walk in someone.
Welcome back to the Otter Creek in Rio Grande. And as you can see, I'm getting ready to get started on, I think, what is going to be called the Two Nubs Mine. I have a whole backstory on why this mine is called Two Nubs, and I'll probably get into that a little bit later. I don't want to start with that at the moment. But what you're looking at is the Atlantic Cable Mine, and it's both the mine itself, or the head house, and then the hoist house. The hoist house is not completely finished. I've still got a little bit of work to do on the roofs. The roofs are still removable at the moment, and I might keep them that way. I need to finish the inside of the building, and I've got a couple of boilers that I've ordered that haven't got here yet, so I'm going to kind of keep that a little loose and fluid until I'm ready to finish that out on the inside. Now, I think I have everything I need to begin work on the scenery in the area, and I'll give a kind of a caveat here at the beginning concerning the trees. I think it would be prototypically accurate to not have a single tree in this scene, because I think, mines that got started in the late 1880s, whenever they were first developed, probably used every tree within walking distance in the construction of the mine. Now, I'm doing this in, I'm thinking the late 1930s. I might go as late into the early 40s. I'm kind of keeping that open. So I'm going to have trees, even if they wouldn't have been here or would have been much smaller or whatever. I'm going to use as much artistic license as I can to make a nice scene that incorporates trees. So where I'm at the moment is final placement of the structures, and they're real close to where I think I want them to be. The cable will have to come from the head house here, the main shaft, and kind of come into this building, and then somewhere in this part of the structure is where the hoist actually set, and then of course this section of the building is where the boiler will sit. So I need to readjust my foam because I've got this large gap right in here that is not going to work. So I need to do that. And I also have a few other things that I've got to consider. This section right here needs to be a dock. And I'm also thinking about a larger dock right here that maybe if you were, loading ore from mules, from other mines in the area, maybe this is a central loading point, where you could bring ore from other places. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to do that yet, but I'm definitely going to think about it. I also think that somewhere right in here, I need a blacksmith shop / carpentry, because, there's going to be wood coming into the mine, to help hold up the shafts and whatnot. So I think there would be a carpentry shop and absolutely some kind of blacksmith for tooling and whatnot. But before I get all of this kind of solidified through here, I got to do some work with the foam. So I'm going to get started on that. The foam, I think, is ready to go. And if you're, kind of curious of what I'm trying to do here, I just used this as a guide for where the cable coming from the head house, where it should enter to the building here and connect with the hoist in here somewhere. I wanted to make that as believable as possible, because eventually I'm going to have to come in here and cut some kind of slot that allows the cable to come through, because I've turned the building 180 degrees out from the way the actual hoist house was at the Atlantic Cable Mine. And I think that'll all work. It's just be a matter of manipulating a hole in there, and then, getting it to know exactly where I want it to go on the foam, because now I think that I know exactly where it's going to be. I can start working on some of the other elements, which is also kind of making a decision on a blacksmith shop and a carpenter shop. I've got a couple of different analogs here for a blacksmith shop and, maybe a carpentry building. I can kind of move them around. I don't want to kind of overdo things and clutter the scene too much, so I'm not 100% sure. I kind of like this area back here maybe as well. I think I could possibly have two more buildings, one here and one back there. I've also got this building, which, it's been sitting over there in frying pan for a long time. It's about 20 feet by 20 feet square, and it kind of works as a good way to look at what's going on in there. I think I've got another building that is even maybe smaller than this one that I might try in a few places, just to kind of get a feel for what it might look like with additional structures. Well, that's another structure that I built for frying pan. It's the pump house for the water tower over there. I'm going to move the camera around a couple different places and just kind of look at it a little bit. So I like them both. I really like this. I think that's about the right size and height for that spot. I think this is too tall. The footprint is not too terribly bad, but I do think it's too tall. I've got this that is also a structure that I kind of mocked up for the frying pan area, and it's too small. It almost looks like it should belong on an N-scale layout instead of an HO. I think the footprint is all right. It's not tall enough. I don't even remember what. I think this is like 20 by 20, give or take. But then this area right here is like 5 foot. And it really should be 8 foot, and this should, be an appropriate height taller as in relation to that. So I know I'm going to look at this for a while, think about it a little more, and then kind of figure out what I want to do from there. think I've made some decisions, and the longer that I looked at both of these structures, the more, I liked what I saw, to include the overall dimensions of this building, which, is 20 by 20. I think the only thing that needs to change is just some subtle differences of doors, windows, that kind of thing. I think that this building needs to have a kind of a two-door opening, and like this one does over here. And I think this building probably needs to be a little bit shorter. So I think I've decided that that's gonna work with those two structures there like that. It's just a matter of some subtle differences. All right, I've had this thing, like it is now for several hours. It's the next day, and the more I look at this, the more I like it. To include the height of this building, it doesn't bother me like it did when I first put it in there. So I'm okay with the height. I think it could be a little bit wider. I do think this building, because when I initially put it in, I did not have my coal bin back here, and so I think it does need to be a little bit shorter. So I think I'm solid on that. It's just a matter of making it come to life. So over here, you can see I've got the box car, and one of the issues with the scene is there's no place for the tailings. I had originally thought that maybe I would extend this and put tailings here, but that really doesn't make sense because you've got track on both sides of that, and you would have very limited ability to put things there. So what I'm thinking, and that's why I've got the box car in here, is I should be able to come and maybe create a 90 right off of this, and then come out here and I can model some tailings as if they're coming off of the fascia here. I think that will work. It's just yet another scratch build that I will need to do if I want to make it happen. So that's 3 more scratch builds. That, and then 2 of these, and hopefully that would be that. But I'm not going to get started on that today. I'm going to do what I can do with everything back behind the track. Now it's just a matter of figuring out how to proceed. And I think what I want to do is I just want to start at this end and kind of shore up anything and everything that needs to take place, that has to take place before I can paint and or add sculpt mold, and how all that proceeds. So I think that's what I'm going to get started doing. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and glue the head house to the foam here. And there's always a little bit of concern anytime you kind of go to do something like this, because once you commit, it's a lot more difficult to go back, so to speak. And I think I want to do it now rather than later, because I don't want to have to reach over the top of it working on anything else, or at least I know I'm going to have to kind of regardless, but I want to minimize as much of it as I can. This is matte medium, and the idea with this is pretty simple. This stuff dissolves with alcohol. So anybody who, I don't know, purchases the railroad or inherits the railroad at a later date, if they watch any of these videos, they ought to know that if they need to take this back up, it can probably be done with some alcohol. It lays on there nice and flat, so I believe I don't need to really add any weight. It probably wouldn't hurt if I could sneak some in here, as long as it doesn't bow up. I don't think it's going to. Now, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I like to have a character associated with a lot of my structures on the railroad. And the Two Nubs Mine is no different, so now would be a good time to tell the story of the Two Nubs. The Two Nubs Mine was founded by prospector Ronnie Hill in the late 1910s. Hill was a collegiate wrestler back east and gained a bit of notoriety in his youth for single-handedly thwarting a train robbery in Missouri. Hill wrestled down an armed robber with his bare hands, which earned him the nickname the Grappler, as penned by the Kansas City Star newspaper. Ronnie the Grappler Hill was drawn by rich silver veins beneath the spires of the rocks and the narrow passes between Frying Pan and Maroon Creek. He struck his claim in the fall of 1912 despite locals' warning of a curse. You see, many a miner and railroad worker lost their lives in them there passes, especially if they was a greedy soul who dug too deep. One stormy night in the spring of 1913, Ronnie was wedging dynamite into a fault line when a misfired charge clapped the face of the tunnel. Tons of jagged shell pinned his hand against the timber bracing. His middle and index finger were crushed beyond saving. So what'd Ronnie do? He lopped them off with a nearby pickaxe and freed himself. Rumor is he rubbed a little dirt on them and continued to dig. Ronnie dubbed his claim the Two Nubs in honor of his lost digits. Some call it the Grappler Mine. Regardless, the mine and Ronnie turned into legend. Ronnie could be caught at the dirty shame growling, "These nubs grip tighter than your hands ever did." Ronnie claimed that his nubs sharpened his hold on his fortune. The name stuck, and the Grappler became legend in the Finger Rocks area. I've worked myself out of a job this weekend. I've got most of the Sculptamold kind of where I want it, at least, you know, as far as what's back behind the structures here. I think, you know, I'm going to have to figure out a little more about what's going to go on in the front here where it meets the fascia, because I'm not sure, you know, if I ever do want to get this plywood out of here, you know, as it was intended to do so, it's not going to be able to slide. It's going to have to kind of lift at the back end and come up. So I'm going to think about that a little more. You know, and an interesting thing about the Sculptamold is I use two different kinds. I use the Activa Fast Mache or Fast Mash, and then I also use the stuff I got from Scenic Express, which I can't remember if it's brand name Sculptamold or if it's a different variety of it, but there's definitely a difference. You can see in here, and maybe you can see a little bit better right here, the darker gray color is the Fast Mache, and it's still wet. I can still work it. And the stuff that I got from Scenic Express, it's already dry. So I'm gonna have to let it all dry and get it painted. So I think I'm gonna call it quits for this video. Thanks for watching the Otter Creek and Rio Grande, and we'll see you around.